you don't listen to the universe, if you don't listen to that sound in your ears and your heart telling you what to do with your life, you will fucking go down. Your health will go down, your looks will go down, your luck will go down. Like, no one can sustain not listening and not have it destroy everything.
So I want to start by breaking down something that I've heard you said. You said, my life was filled with shocks. Now I live a life where I create shocks. So I know this is kind of starting off strong here, but what are these shocks that you've experienced in your life?
It's interesting that you asked that, because I was just speaking about this to a client today. It's been a ride. It's funny because it's still shocking to me. Like, someone was just
Mm.
telling me about someone else who lost their child, and I just couldn't, like, I stopped in my tracks hearing about it. It was sounded so horrible. Apparently this woman lost her kid to COVID. I just couldn't, like, when I heard about it.
Mm.
But then as I processed it, which took a few seconds, I remembered all the shocks that I've been given. And I remembered that I came out on the other side as a person who not only knows, but is living the embodiment of the gifts that shocks provide. So what did I go through? My mom dropped dead out of nowhere when I was almost 7, which sounds, I don't remember, my brother kept saying that I was being overly dramatic by saying that that was a big deal, but it, like, totally annihilated my life, losing your mom
Mm.
when you're like almost 7. And I just
Yeah.
put on a leather jacket and was like, I'm fucking fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. But the truth is that, like, it is the biggest heartbreak of my life. And since then, I've had so many more, because the shocks for me kept coming till I woke up. So my mom died. And then after that, the next shock came when I had a near-death experience at 24. At 26, I lost my first daughter to sudden infant death syndrome. She just died. She was brought to me dead in my arms. And then my best friend hung himself. My dad died of a heart attack. My house burnt down, all within a year. And so I'm not suggesting that anyone needs to go through all of these, but if someone listening has been through a shock, I would say that the law of shocks is providing you with an opportunity. And you asked, how do I create shocks in my life? Or is that part of the question? Or
Oh, yeah. So what are these shocks now? How do you create these shocks now?
so the shocks that I create now is that I'm stark cold sober, and I've been sober for 14 years. That's one shock. Another shock is that I'm in a monogamous relationship where I don't flirt with other people or cheat on my husband. That's shocking. It's shocking to work out every day. It's shocking to eat healthy, even though I sometimes want to eat a pizza. It's shocking to be a mom when, like, we talk about, like, our tendencies are to, one, to give up on life, to gain weight, to not understand how to have healthy relationships, to numb ourselves with drugs, alcohol, food, you name it, right? To escape. And really, like, if you look around you, I mean, how many people do you see living in excellence, right? So I think living in excellence is shocking today. Like, I pursue my fucking dreams and I do things that are very uncomfortable to do so.
Yeah, and you did mention some pretty significant losses. What's your advice to someone right now, maybe that's watching this, that's going through that a loss similar to yours? What's your advice to give them based on what you've been through?
I think the first thing is just to remember that nothing is happening by accident, and that everything is happening for the purpose of your awakening. And that you wouldn't be as interesting and your life wouldn't be as full, rich, or successful going forward without the heartbreak that you are currently receiving, without the loss, without the grieving, without the horror sometimes that occurs. And everyone's different, right? Some people's horrors are physical, some people's horrors are illness related, some people's horrors are loss, some people's horrors are, there's just an endless variety. And I do think we get a certain type, don't we? Right? When you think about it, it's like, in the work that I teach, it's called designer friction. It's like it was designed just for you. And if you can meditate on it and ask the universe in prayer, like, how was this designed for me? You'll know intuitively how it was designed for you.
So I did see, looking through your Instagram, that you are pregnant. How does, and obviously you hopefully have a lot more life to live, and there maybe be more shocks down the road, I'm sure. How does your past shocks affect the way that you look towards the future?
Well, there's one definite shock coming for me, Brian, which is that I'm going to drop dead one day. And I don't
Yeah.
know when that's going to happen, but I'm pretty clear that that's going to be shocking. I don't think anyone
Hmm.
gets out of, like some people say, oh, they're not afraid of death. I'm personally very afraid of death, but like, that's just me. And I say that with all humility as a spiritual teacher. One can be afraid of the moment of death and still be enlightened. That is also something that I needed to like get a refresher memo on. But yes, we are all heading towards that very spectacularly shocking moment of dying. So, um, yeah, how do I look at it? Today I get little shocks here and there. I get like rejections all the time, or I'll get my feelings hurt, or things won't go the way that I want them to go. And I just always try to remember to redirect. Like I feel like almost like my body is like an instrument that is a homing mechanism to remind me to come back into the present moment. And so whenever I get shocks today, I listen. It's almost like a doot, doot, doot. If you think about pilots, they wear these headphones, and the headphones just go boop, boop, like on either ear when the plane is going too far to the left or too far to the right. And someone once asked me, like, how many times do you think during a flight do they hear that beeping noise to let them know that they've gone off track? And I don't know, I guessed like 5 times. And the truth is that it literally happens the entire fucking flight. Like they're just like beeping back and forth to keep the plane going in the direction that it's supposed to go. And so today I look at shocks as just little beeps that allow me to realign my plane in the direction that I am going, to clarify where am I fucking going? How am I getting there? Who's coming with me, etc. And this is what I didn't do before, right? So then when my daughter died, my house burned down, my friend killed himself, my father died, my mother died, like all the poverty and the heroin addiction and the cocaine, like all that stuff was me just not fucking listening. So today, when shocks come, I'm like, I'm fucking, like my hands are in the air, the white flag is up. I'm listening. I'm like, I'll do whatever you say.
Hmm. Yeah, you did mention your a little history with drugs. So when bad things happen to us, right, we can go down two paths. We can go down that path like you did with the drugs, but then you can also go down the meditation path, which you're on right now, or the spiritual path. So do you mind just diving in a little before we talk about addiction? Do you mind diving in a little deeper on what exactly the addictions that you went through before?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. So I originally just drank, and then I discovered heroin and cocaine. I was already doing hallucinogens, which weren't really like new for me. I think some people, when they come upon hallucinogens, they're like, oh my God, we're all one. But I already grew up raised by an awakened shaman. So, like, I already felt and knew with my entire being that we were all one. But once I took mushrooms, I was like, oh, yeah, we're all one. So I just was really reminded of that. I would say, yeah, heroin and cocaine were my favorites. Like, the rest I could kind of take or leave because I was in so much pain, and heroin really numbs you of all feeling. And cocaine is great because it makes you think you're amazing. And so what I was lacking was confidence and the remembrance of who I truly am. So cocaine's great for that for about 2 minutes. And then heroin lasts for about, I don't know, a day. It just knocks you out and you feel absolutely nothing. And it takes like 8 months to get really fucking hooked on it, which I did. And then I was really hooked on it for years to come.
Yeah, watching your content, or just watching interviews, I heard you say that sex, drugs, and rock and roll is itself a form of meditation. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's just those are like easy streets to remembering what the truth is, right? Like I remember snorting a line of coke, and I was, for instance, like one story. I was at a party. I'm at a party, hanging out with this celebrity who was a big deal to me. He was really funny. He was a comedian. He was someone who had influenced me quite a bit in my life. And I was in my 20s. I was on heroin and cocaine, and we were snorting cocaine together. And when I snorted cocaine, I was like, something happened to me where like the best, most amazing version of me, like the best-selling author that I currently am, all the things that I've done would kind of funnel through me. Like I'd have these like exuberant moments where for an hour I was like the full embodiment of Biet and what it meant to be me. And so I was being that. I guess I was saying really charming and entertaining things, and I was being brilliant, and I was being funny, and he just thought I was amazing. And he turns to me and he's like, you know, you really should write a book. Like you're so interesting. And I just remember feeling this feeling of like, oh, like despair in my whole body because I knew there was no fucking way I was going to be able to write a book. I was going to wake up at 8 p.m. the next day, hungover, with like needing to snort heroin, order some Chinese food, and then snort some more heroin. That was like as good as it was going to get. And this guy saw the being in me. He saw the greatness in me. And I could feel it. I was like, the distance between my greatness, who I really am because I snorted some coke, and my capacity to actually follow through were like zero. And so that's really like, and so when I'm saying it is a pathway, yes, if you want to feel like you're the most amazing person on the planet, that you have a purpose, that everything that happens in life is meant to be, that you are connected to the universe and to God and to the cosmos, and you're made out of stars, and love is the only thing that's real. If you want to feel like that for 5 hours, snort some coke. Like that's
Yeah.
a fucking way to do it. It really works. But then do you want follow through? Do you want what's that word? Integration? Do you want results? That's not going to work. Like you can't use cocaine to acquire results and embodiment and actual transformation. You can only use it to get glimpses of spiritual truth.
So you seem pretty like you like state of mind you described before. Like you seem like you're pretty like confident like that right now. I'm to take a guess here. You didn't do a lot of coke before this podcast because you're pregnant. So how do you get that confidence or that energy without it now after the fact?
Well, I have it all the time because my practices allow me to. Like I do
Mm.
breath work that I founded every single day. I sit in meditation. I read contemplative literature. I move my body every day. I help many people. I feel like service allows me to remember who I am. And the truth is that I want to share this because I think it's so important and such a key thing is that even though I have found the answer to life, and even though I share it with so many people, and even though I'm thriving in my life, I still have moments where I forget who I am, and I feel that kind of knife in my gut feeling. Like sometimes something will hurt me, or someone will say something, or something will happen where I'm like, you know what? Maybe I am really just a total fucking loser. And
Mm.
those moments, I have tools that I turn to and super efforts that I reach for that I only do once I reach those pinnacle states. And so it's kind of like a cycling through. And I teach this in the wheel that I've created. Like I, for such a long time, was seeking enlightenment. I'm sure that many of your listeners are seeking that state. And I found it. I found it sober, like, you know, running through the forest, tits in my hands, like hair blowing in the wind, like sober, sober, sober. But like, I remember who I am, crying. Oh my God, the meaning of life has been revealed to me. Here, I finally know what I'm here to do, and I'm here to do it, blah, blah, blah. And you know how great that feeling is. The problem is that that feeling doesn't last forever. It can't last forever. Sober, not sober, it doesn't matter. Enlightenment is a thing that is a moving target. It moves. And so I created a new wheel to describe enlightenment that encompasses all that enlightenment actually is. So the way I describe it is that it's like a clock, and 12 o'clock is enlightenment. So it's like that running through the forest, like remembering who you are moment. Whether you do that with ayahuasca or totally sober, whatever, you know that feeling, right? And then 3 o'clock is creativity. It's where you like put the pedal to the metal, write a book, start a business, like create content, make a course, you know, become an actor in films. I don't know, whatever run a marathon. That's creative flow. Then there's 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock is like really lame. And for all of your listeners, and even for you, like 6 o'clock is something I never knew was a part of enlightenment, and that is spreadsheets, cold calls, marketing events, networking, like meeting people for coffee because you think that something could brew from it. All of those things are inside of 6 o'clock. And so if you don't understand that those three, like all those parts are part of enlightenment, you can get really bogged down being like, oh, I just finished a spreadsheet. Now I have to go meditate so I can be enlightened again. It's like you didn't stop being enlightened because you were making a spreadsheet. Like it's all part of one unified feel. And then we get to 9 o'clock, which is the real clincher. And that is when, which I call humility. And that is where you get that feeling like, I'm a loser. I'm going to fail at everything I try. Fuck, I hate my body. I hate my life. There's not enough money, blah, 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 blah. Something happens. You feel upset. You feel dissatisfied. And you crumble to the ground. And you say, fuck, I am nothing. I can't do this. I need help. And if you're me, you're praying. Like I pray and I just say, please help me. I fucking can't do this. Just show me. And I'm speaking to that inner world inside me. And when I really pray, when I pray, like I mean it, something happens and I go back to 12 o'clock and I'm back to that running through the forest, tits in my hand feeling again. So it's all kind of circling and cycling through. So like if I have a bad day or a bad few hours where I'm like, oh, I'm such a loser, I remember, well, I know what to do now because it's 9 o'clock and that's just part of enlightenment rather than seeing it as like, oh, like how will I ever make it back, you know?
You know, I feel like that's a big issue with people that are younger, is that they go through those 6 o'clock moments or those 9 o'clock moments, and they think that is a reflection of their entire life, when in fact it's just going to circle and circle and circle, and it's probably not going to stop. Correct?
I have not found it to. Yeah, I think it does stop when
Yeah.
you die, but then we probably are just
Yeah.
born
Yeah. Yeah.
again. So I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. So, going back to the topic of addiction, let's say someone is in the middle of an addiction that they're battling with right now. Sometimes I find that with anything, the hardest step is to take is the first step. And so, what would you say would be a first, like, practical step someone could take to overcome addiction before they do anything else?
I think the first step to take is a tool called divided attention, which is a law inside my book. It's the first chapter of my book if anyone wants to like really get into the nitty-gritty of it, but I'm going to explain it to you here. So this will be enough help just to make your beginning. So divided
Yeah.
attention is a meditation technique that you use to divide your attention through many things. So I'm looking at my phone right now, recording an iPod with you, an iPod, and my brain is like so pregnant. I'm recording this podcast episode with you. I'm in a sunlit room. I see the sunlit room. I'm breathing. And then I'm just floating above myself, like as if I was a cameraman, like I'm like Kubrick or something. And I float above myself and I see myself with my hat, with the bridge of my nose, the movement of my lips. And I just see myself from above and I ask, what do I actually look like? Who am I? From above, like seeing myself. But the point is to divide your attention between where you are and your feeling body right here, and then seeing yourself. So I did that before I got sober off of heroin, over and over and over again. I just kept dividing my attention, dividing my attention, dividing my attention. And one day I somehow succeeded, and a crack kind of in the matrix occurred where I really saw what I looked like. And what I looked like was a depraved, impoverished, 98-pound heroin addict. That's what I looked like. And once I saw myself and I could see, like, I'm a failure. I'm never going to find love. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have a career of my dreams. I'm never going to make any money. I'm never going to make it in the music industry. I'm never going to be a best-selling author. All these dreams that I had, I could see that I was really never, ever, ever going to achieve them. That was enough to help me take that first step into sobriety, because I was like, I don't want to do this. I was 29 at the time. I was like, I don't want to be this monster at 40, because I'm just going to be a 40-year-old version of this disgusting mess that I've created. Like, it's just going to get older. It's not going to get prettier, you know?
Yeah, and it's tough because you have to have that motivation behind quitting, right? But I feel like
Yeah.
also sometimes people know, like they have the why of why they should quit, but they still do it anyways. And something else I just thought of too when you talked about divided attention. A lot of people use drugs obviously as an escape. Is that divided attention almost like substituting for that escape in a way?
I don't think so because divided attention requires so much effort. Like you have to actually like show up and try something. With drugs,
Okay.
it's like it just does it
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you. Yeah. So, but I
Got
would
it.
say that the epiphanies that one can have, which I call self-remembering, I think those are a substitute for drugs. And like for me, if it hadn't been for all the substitutes I found in sobriety, I would not be sober today. Like for anyone listening who's addicted to something or a bunch of things or is, God forbid, where I was or worse, I know many people are like on the verge of dying of fentanyl overdoses. Like I've done fentanyl. I have crawled across floors vomiting. I have I really remember when I was on fentanyl because I'm a heroin addict. Like that was my drug of choice. When I did fentanyl, I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna die. Like I was like really like
Hmm.
scared. I actually wasn't. I was like, I think I'm gonna die. I was just kind of like,
Hmm.
you're so relaxed on fentanyl that you're kind of sub like surrendered to whatever it's doing to you. So I remember crawling across the floor to vomit in a toilet and being like, oh, I think I'm gonna die. Like I was that close to death. And I didn't even really mind because I think there was like a part of me that was just like, fuck it, whatever, like I hate this world, I hate this life. I just want to get out. So what I will say is I've been sober for 14 years and my life every single day since I got sober, through all the pain, all the things that I've been through, all the moments, whatever, none of it, I wouldn't trade any of it for like time high today
Why is that?
because I'm really alive, I'm really here. And I'm also
Hmm.
moving, like I'm moving up a mountain, like my life changes, my being changes. I'm radically growing and surprising myself. I would say, like, I believe in a higher self, like what I call God, but I'm not religious. I believe that I'm getting to witness that power every day. And like it gets to enhance the lives of millions of people. Like I just feel so blessed that there's a reverberation from my work rather than me just all alone in a depraved state on the verge of death in a shitty apartment making no money being like, oh wow, the meaning of life has been shown to me. What fucking use is that to anyone else? How selfish is that? So you remembered the meaning of life and you're about to drop dead in a bathtub. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So even though people know sometimes the addictions that they have are wrong or they know it's leading them down a bad path, they still do it anyways. Why is that? What are they searching for that in the drugs that they can't get in real life?
I mean, I think there's so many answers to that. The first I hear
Hmm.
is like an intolerance of reality. Like
Yeah.
life here on earth is very colorful. There is a lot of pain, there's a lot of pleasure, there's a lot of ups and downs, there's a lot of effort required. Like when I say I work out every day, I do breath work every day, I do spreadsheets, I make cold calls. I'm like, that is not all fun. Some of it is work. And as a drug addict, it's very weird for me to do work. It's very counterintuitive, I should say. Even today, 14 years sober, I think it's counterintuitive to do things that my illness of my mind tells me are dangerous or bad. So I think they're trying to avoid the color of life, which namely is pain. For me, like I would go to the ends of the earth to experience pleasure. Like I was willing to die for the endless pleasure of heroin and cocaine and all that
Hmm.
stuff. I would say the other thing is enabling. Like if you're on all those drugs, like you're probably being enabled by someone or many people, and you're
Your
probably
environment. Yeah.
manipulating and hurting a lot of people. And there's a shame that is usually there for addicts like me that you'd have to confront that shame and actually say, wow, I'm a using piece of shit, abusive person, daughter, son, friend, lover, you name it. But there's nobody getting $100 worth of heroin a day that isn't manipulating or fucking hurting someone.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not
Yeah.
possible. So,
Yeah. So, what do you think is your biggest mistake that you made during your recovery that maybe some people can take some lessons from?
After I got sober or before?
Like in the process of becoming sober? Like, did you have any pitfalls, any mistakes?
Um, I don't think so. I never tried to get sober personally. I was such a
Mm,
self-absorbed piece of shit alcoholic that it never occurred to me that I should try to get sober because I was so entitled. And I thought to myself, if you had pain like me, if you were an artist like me, so talented, I'm so talented, and no one can see how talented I am. No one knows, bitch, because you're not fucking putting your shit out
yeah,
there. You know what I mean? It's like whatever. But
yeah,
back then, it felt so like the world is put upon me. I'm so talented. No one sees me. And so it never occurred to me to get sober because I was like, a person like me deserves the ambrosia of drugs.
mm,
And I deserve it. So when I got sober, I was done. Like I was literally done. So there was no pitfalls for me. I literally was like lifted to the place pretty much that I am now, except it was like, what they call like a pink cloud or something. Like I just, holy
yeah.
shit, I think I can do this. Like I think like 1 minute at a time, I was like, I think there's something on the other side of this that's like worth it.
Yeah. So let's go down the other path now. So if someone is looking to start to get into meditating, what would you say would be a good first step for them?
I would say, start by sitting for like 2, 3 minutes a day, like brief periods, and look for messages, like look for books, look for teachers that you really resonate with, and listen to what they're saying. Follow the directions of people who have come before you, because nothing is new. Any awakening that's occurring is just a cycle, just like the enlightenment wheel that I described before. It's like we're all one and we're all living an archetypal tale. So you just want to like follow people that actually have what you want and do what they did.
Yeah, and then after that, I mean, like I've been meditating for 10 minutes for probably 3 years, very basic. What's the next step after that? How do I personally go to the next level when it comes to it? Or just maybe any other tips for
Yeah.
after you reach that first step?
I would say then you got to ask yourself what kind of meditation works for me, right? So some people
Mm,
gravitate towards Vedic meditation, which is a mantra based, which is 20 minutes of repeating a mantra. Some people gravitate towards the work more like what I do, which is really intense ecstatic breath work and somatic work, which involves some level of movement and breath while you're doing the meditation. Because I am movingly centered, so I gravitate towards that. So you got to ask yourself, like, am I someone who does better when I incorporate breath and movement into my sitting? Um, there's other forms of meditation. There's mindfulness practices, and there's Gurdjieffian meditation. There's loving kindness meditation. So finding new practices, trying them, and discarding anything that doesn't work, and then upping the time valve. So if you've been at 10, I would just go to 15, and then like slowly working yourself up to 20 or 30 minutes if you can.
something I kind of want to pick your brain about this. Something that I discovered was ever since I started meditating, my social skills have been a lot better. Um, I have some theories, but I would love to get your thoughts on why you think this is.
Well, meditation allows you to listen. So
Mm,
50% of communication with others is just listening. And I would say that my social skills sucked as well prior to being a sober meditator because I
yeah.
wasn't listening. I was just talking and waiting for my turn to talk, or being insecure about myself and worrying what others were thinking of me. And that's a lot of wasted energy.
Yeah, I mean, I learned that like when you actually are focused in the conversation, you're actually listening to what the other person is saying, chances are that you'll come up with something witty to say back or a funny joke or just any like you got when you're not so in your head about what thinking about what the other person is thinking of you and you're actually focused on the conversation, you're more likely to bring more to the conversation. So that's honestly like if people ask me like what like they're struggling with their social skills, obviously they should get the basics down. But the tip I would give them is you should try to meditate so you're able to focus more on conversations besides the other benefits that meditation brings to you. What do you think are some misconceptions about meditation that people that maybe need to be debunked?
I think the whole spiritual life, like, the idea that there is a spiritual life is in and of itself a bit of a lie, right? Because the way that it's been sold to us and packaged, at least as far as I can remember, is that if you do this stuff, you will be free, and then you'll never have a feeling again. You'll never have, like, you'll be just levitate all over the place, and you'll be one of those people that just like is endlessly like flawless, and you won't, whatever, what do you do, all the stuff we've been told. And I just find that, like, I'm everything. I am so many things. And if you really actually use meditation rightly, you will be, yes, you'll be Eckhart Tolle some of the time and float around and levitate, yes. But then some of the time you'll just be like a dick, or you'll be upset, or you'll be sad. The difference when you meditate is that you are present to all of that. You're not running from it or hiding from it from yourself. So you get so much more marrow. Like, to me, one of the somatic practices that I've created, part of the Guided by Biet sequence, is actually being open to and in a state of awareness and acceptance of the shitty, gross, yucky feelings that occur inside my body. So, like, for me, I'm not a really big fan of disappointment. I don't know about you, but like, if I've had a disappointing day, sometimes I'll think, oh, well, I deserve like a dessert or something. Like, as if like the day didn't give me enough. I fucking want more from this day, and I
Yeah.
deserve blah, blah. So today what I do is I have all these somatic practices that allow me to just join forces with the feeling of disappointment. And because I am aware that disappointment occurs in my body, that I am a creator of the feeling of disappointment, now I know what to do with it. So what I do is I do my somatic techniques around disappointment, and then boom, I get visions. Like the other night I don't remember which feeling it was that I was doing my exercise with. It wasn't disappointment, it was another one. It was shame. I was ashamed. Someone had said something about me in front of someone, and I felt ashamed, and I was like, oh my God, this is so horrifying. I can't believe I looked so bad. What if they thought this, blah, blah, blah. And so I took that into my somatic practice, and at the end of it, I was given a message that I'm supposed to do this specific type of artwork. And I was given a memo of what to do with the artwork and how to paint it. And I felt like this amazing release as my body was used as a conduit of messaging. Like, I was given a message. So what if, and this is for listeners and for you, like, what if those feelings of disappointment or shame or failure or rejection or whatever feelings you're like, no, like, I'm not interested in those feelings. What if instead of running from them, which is what we're built to do, we go into them and actually use these practices like the ones I've created to go into the feeling. Then you go into the feeling, and all of a sudden you're given a message. What if those feelings are actually just messages? And we're like, oh, message, fucking, like a run. Like every
Yeah.
time you run, like it's like it's like a letter in your mailbox, and you're like running from it, you know?
Yeah, and this relates to another question I want to ask, which is what's the balance between positive thinking and negative thinking? Like, because I think maybe one of too much could be a bad thing. Like you said, if you're just pushing away the negative, then you're not going to see those signs. You're not going to see those alarms. But if obviously, if you're just thinking about the negative, obviously that's a bad thing too. So, what do you think is the balance? And should we completely shut off the negative or completely shut off the positive?
I don't think you can on this fucking planet because,
Yeah.
like, again, coming back to what we talked about earlier, like, we are all hurtling towards our death. So, like, there's just nobody who thinks that's a positive thing. Nobody's like, can't wait to die. Like, unless you're suicidal, you're not
Yeah.
stoked about that. Like, I'm about to have a C-section in 2 months, and I'm super not stoked about that. Like, and I'm supposed to, like, I'm some enlightened spiritual teacher, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm supposed to be like, C-section. Like, no, it's just something I'm not. I wish I could skip. Just today, tomorrow, I have to get blood work done for the pregnancy. And I was like, why can't I just have some Valium for that? Like, I just don't do well with
Yeah.
needles. But no, it's like, you have to just be here for it, right? So I would say that what we want to focus on is this thing called the neutralizing force, which is where I go. So what I try to do is I try to bring into my consciousness all the pleasure, all the bliss, all the yum, all the confidence, all the like Aretha Franklin type levels of like, I matter. And then like I bring to consciousness like that Voldemort, like piece of crap, like gross, failing, dying, old, fat, you name it, like on this side. And then I bring my consciousness back to what's in the middle. What is something that I can name that is an embodiment of both of those traits, both death and life, both confidence and failure. And when I can find that flavor, that feeling of both, that really helps me. So that's one thing. The other thing I'll say is I would say focus on the positive much, 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 much more,
Yeah.
because our nature is to just be negative for most people. So we're set to feel shitty. We're set to wake up with doubts, and we're set to be afraid and insecure. And so it's like really all that's already set up for you. You don't really need to work hard to be miserable, you know? But if you do really hit that number 9, where something hits you in a part, you know, sometimes you just get punched in a spot that's just too, it's too much. Like they hurt you too
Yeah.
much, whoever they did it, right? And at that point, that's when I really like to soften and feel the pain. But if I'm not at 9 o'clock, I'm like, I'm busy fucking killing it. Like
Yeah.
enlightenment is
Yeah.
great, creative flow. I'm going to feel great. I'm going to feel great while I'm doing spreadsheets. All that's going to feel good. 9 o'clock, I'm going down. Like I'm not going to be like, that's not happening today. I'm going to fucking do a gratitude list. Like that just doesn't work, you know?
Yeah. Just pushing it to the side and just going to come back later, right?
I wouldn't be able to push it to the side any. I'm not that strong.
Yeah. So I heard you say once that we need to meditate while we're on a date with someone we really like. So how do we like have that sort of meditative? How do we meditate in our day-to-day lives without closing our eyes on a mountain somewhere? For example, being on a date with someone you really like.
Well, it's different for different activities, but for dates, what I did, and I haven't been on a date in 13 years that I've been with
Yeah,
my
yeah,
man, but I'm, you know, yeah, like I still use the technique to some degree, but the technique that I came up with was treating the person that I was on a date with like a 6-year-old child. And so instead of like objectifying them and thinking about what number they were, wow, are they an 8? Were they a 9? How was I going to gloat about this to my girlfriends? What were their outfits like? Like, what did they accomplish in their life? Wow, like this makes me look good that they're taking whatever, you know, oh God, I'm going to fuck this person, or I'm going to marry them, or I'm going to, wow, making babies with this person. Well, they're going to be really good looking babies. Like wherever objectifying someone looks like, I took all that away, and what I left was treating them like a 6-year-old. And what I found was when I treated someone that I was really sexually attracted to and physically attracted to and mentally, like all the things, like a 6-year-old, I was left with not a lot to do, in the sense that I wasn't able to use my like sexy charm on them, because I wouldn't flirt with a 6-year-old. That's disgusting, right?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
treating them like a 6-year-old allowed me to come down from Lustville and like fucking objectification bill, and come down to the earth and say, do I actually respect this person? Do I think they're funny? Do I think their motives are good? Do I believe that we have similar visions of the world? What do I think of their spiritual perspective? What's their relationship with their parents like? Like, these are questions you can ask yourself if you come down. But if you're in Lustville, if in objectification town, you can't ask yourself those good questions. And what happens is you're going to end up in bed with them because they're fuckable and they're hot and it makes you look good or whatever. And then after you sleep with them, the relationship will either crumble immediately and turn into a one night stand, or it will crumble 3 months later and turn into like it wasn't a match, or it will crumble 6 months later where it was like you really tried but it wasn't a match. That's generally the chances you have. The chances that you objectifying someone and treating them like a piece of meat at a date is going to land you like the person of your dreams, where you like marry each other and then like build a family and make millions of dollars together, very unlikely.
Yeah. Also, it's expectations too. Sometimes we put expectations about someone else, or where or like how we see the future with them that are just completely not true, and that can get in the way of like you said, like what they're actually saying, or like how you actually what actually do you actually connect with this person in all aspects. What is what would you say is your biggest regret of your 20s if you had to look back?
Oof. God, do I regret anything from it? I think, yeah, maybe like, I mean, I don't regret this because I'm just so grateful for the cringe. But when
Yeah.
I was like 19, I got signed to Sony, and I was so lost. Oh my God, it's just, I was so lost and confused. I thought that's it. I've been discovered. I've been signed to Sony. Like it's all free. Like I just pictured like myself like on my way to becoming the new Rolling Stones from there. Like that was the trajectory I thought I was on. And I remember like just like wearing like a turban on my head and drinking all the time, and I was all puffy from drinking. Again, I don't really regret any of this because I love that I went through this super lost, cringy, lonely period because I think I can help others because I've had that, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I know that period. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
been there. But I think in terms of regret, like if there was one thing, if I was like somehow to awaken in consciousness, it would be so nice to have the humility then to actually like notice that I was harming my body, and to remember that just being given a record contract doesn't mean you're set for life, and to remember like to know that I needed to actually work for things. That would have been fun.
This is I just thought of a question. This is a little interesting for me with this podcast and everything I'm trying to do. Do you think that what do you think is the effect of fame and success in your 20s? And do you think that's something that people in their 20s even strive towards, or should we maybe try to prolong that a little bit based
How do you
on your
mean prolong?
experience,
Oh, like
or like should we pursue that?
I think we should pursue whatever lights us up. And I
Hmm.
feel like it's good. Like you just need the balance, you know? Like if you get fame really early on and you don't have the spiritual foundation to actually enjoy life and be a whole person, you're not going to end up like Daniel Day-Lewis. You'll end up like one of the bazillion drug addicted child stars, right? Like Lindsay Lohan or
Hmm.
whatever, right? So I think we should always pursue what we truly, truly want. And then also remember that we really need to do the work to actually be able to show up for that. Like I have clients right now who are like they're already famous actresses or actors, but they're like on the verge of being much, much more famous. And the fact that they work with me and are like actually grounding themselves and doing the real work, they're set. Like every time I talk to them, they're like in their 20s. I'm like, you are so lucky. Like this is amazing. You get to have it all.
Hmm. What would you say is the biggest life lesson that you've learned from your 20s, or maybe just one you can think of? And if there's a story behind that, that would be great too.
Biggest life lesson from my 20s? I don't think I learned anything back then because I was
Hmm.
unwilling to like actually listen. I just literally I was competitive with women. I was afraid. I was so self-pitying, so self-centered. And you know, my baby died when I was 26. Like she was, you know, I don't know like if that's a lesson. I guess what I learned was that if you don't listen to the universe, if you don't listen to that sound in your ears and your heart telling you what to do with your life, you will fucking go down. Your health will go
Hmm.
down, your looks will go down, your luck will go down. Like no one can sustain not listening and not have it destroy everything.
And not paying attention, because sometimes life can just blindside you, right? Um,
Yeah. Well, it's talking to you like all the time. It's just
hmm.
we're like I had two fuck you symbols up in the air and I was like, no fucking way I'm doing what you say.
Like a lot of people in their 20s.
Yeah.
Sometimes me, you know. So my last question for you is, let's say younger Biet is here right now. What would you tell her?
What would I say?
Maybe let's say I'm trying to think of an age.
Yeah, tell me
Um,
an age.
what would you tell that 19-year-old that just got that Sony deal? unaware of all the stuff that was about to go down.
It all sounds so cliche, when I think about it. But like, I just think about holding her in my arms and telling her
Mm.
that she's wrong, that she's really wrong. She's wrong about how she looks. She's so beautiful. She's wrong about how it works in the world, getting your work out into the world. Like, she had these ideas that if you're talented, if you're that talented, your career just whisks away and it's all taken care of for you on your own private jets. Like, I would tell her that's actually not how it's going to work for you. Maybe that does. Maybe it does work like that for some people. I don't know. I'm not one of those people. For me, universe wanted me to work. I didn't marry a billionaire. I'm not like getting my boobs done. Like, the universe said to me, I want you to show up 50%. If you can show up 50%, I'll do the rest. And so I think I would have told her, like, all you need to do, bitch, is show up 50%. Because I know back then I was showing up 0%, like 5%. I'll give
Yeah,
myself five,
yeah.
5%.
That's something I think about a lot too. Is that like one day you're gonna look back and be like, you're all wrong. Like you had no idea what was going on, and that's comforting to me, right? Because now it gives me the grace to like have to like learn it out and like figure it out, you know?
Yeah. Oh, today I'm still
Right?
wrong. I just don't think I'm right.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't, but I also don't rely on myself today. I rely on a higher energy that flows through me, and I bow down to that, and I do whatever the fuck it says. So that's very different than thinking I'm right.